Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence at LPA Software Solutions. I'm pleased to be with you today to talk to you about one of the new features that's part of the recent IBM Cognos Analytics release, dashboarding. Throughout the webinar today, you might find you have some questions you'd like to ask. Please submit those questions via the WebEx chat feature. I'll, at the end of the webinar, answer as many of those questions as I can while we have time. But any questions I don't answer while we're on the air, I will answer by email after the webinar is completed. So all your questions will be answered. So please submit them as you go. And at the end of the webinar today, I will answer as many as I can, time permitting. The structure of the webinar today is going to be just a few slides to introduce you to this new capability of dashboarding. But the bulk of the time is going to be spent in a demonstration of the features and functionality, and then again followed by questions and answers. So let's get started. So dashboards, part of the new Cognos Analytics release, part of the new self-service data discovery features of that release specifically. Dashboards, probably most folks have some familiarity with at a glance information. Lots of times we think of dashboards as sort of static things, a 4-up set of charts, that sort of thing. If you use Cognos Workspace, then Workspaces are like dashboards, and the workspace world is a bit more interactive, let's say, than a static report. Dashboards take that interactivity to another level. They are certainly all about gaining insights and analyses from your data, but one of the most unique features of Cognos Analytics that dashboards takes advantage of is that this enables end users to leverage their own data assets and create dashboards from those. And what I mean by that is, in general, Excel files and CSV files, or leverage the dashboard technology against the corporate data assets like the data warehouse, or actually do that in combination. So from the notion of self-service business intelligence, where our end users are enabled to do the analyses that they need with their own data assets and with corporate data assets, right? Dashboards is one of those enablers in the Cognos Analytics world that enables self-service BI for our users. Now, if you've used Watson Analytics from IBM, you might be familiar with a component there called the Assemble component. The dashboard capability that I'll demonstrate for you today is going to appear to be very, very similar to that technology, and of course that's on purpose. So dashboards at a glance, Cognos Analytics dashboards, self-service data discovery, interactive experience. Now, when you go ahead and you say you'd like to create a new dashboard, the first thing you'll do is you'll select the type of dashboard you're creating, and the tool supports 3 types: single page, tabbed, and infographic. Single page, I think, is self-explanatory. Tabbed is, I think, also a very common layout for a dashboard, where I can have multiple collections of data in a single dashboard object. Infographics might be new to folks. It was certainly a new term to me as I explored this tool. Essentially, an infographic is a long page you scroll through that tends to be far more visual in orientation than perhaps what we're used to on a single page or a tab. Regardless of which layout you select, the next thing you'll do, or the type you select, pardon me, the next thing you'll do is pick a layout for either the page, for the tabs, or for the infographic. In the picture, you see some of the layouts that come with Cognos Analytics. There are a bunch of them. When you install the tool, one of the archives you can import is this collection of templates. And these templates can be used not only in dashboards, but there's also a collection of templates that you can use in the reporting tool as well. These are easy to add to, they're easy to modify because they just live in the team content area in a folder, and you can edit them there. I'll go ahead and use a layout today, but you also have the option of no layout, essentially a blank page and a free-form layout, so you're not constrained to any particular look or feel. But you pick the template that you want after you've selected your type. Then you pick your data sources from which you would like to build your individual visualizations. Data modules and uploaded files are the two types of data sources you might pick. In the demonstration today, by the way, I'm going to start by uploading a file, and I'm going to use the contents of that file to create my dashboard. But data modules are another type of managed metadata. Framework Manager is probably the centrally managed metadata that we're most familiar with in the Cognos Business Intelligence world. And in Cognos Analytics, that hasn't changed. Packages still exist. I can write reports from packages just like I could before. Data modules, though, are a new data metadata object. And it's a different standard. It's a different modeling tool. In fact, it's a web-based modeling tool. And data modules can source information for my dashboards in addition to my uploaded files. LPA will be soon presenting a webinar like this one specifically focused on data modules. So I'm not going to get too terribly deep into those today, except to say that when I create a dashboard, I have the choice of using one or more uploaded files that I have uploaded or that others have uploaded to the shared area called team content, and or any combination of data modules that are available to me, either ones I've created or ones that are available to me in the team content area. Once I've picked the data sources that I'm going to use, I would then go ahead and add data to my canvas. And by adding data to my canvas, the tool immediately starts to create visualizations based on the type of data I've added. I also can control what the visualization is. If I don't want it to be a bar chart and I would rather have it be a heat chart, I can make those changes. But one of the ways to add visualizations is to drag and drop data onto the canvas and have the tool automatically select a visualization. You also have a collection of visualizations that you could add and then add data to them. So you can start with a visualization in mind and add data to it, or you can start with no visualization in mind, add data to the canvas, and have Cognos select one for you, which you could then change. There's another way to get visualizations onto a dashboard, and for me, this is actually one of the more exciting features in the tool. There is a collection of buttons in the left-hand side that give me access to a series of tools when I create a dashboard. This top tool is where I select my data sources, as I described in the previous slide. This next tool is a way for me to search all of the data I have available, not simply the data I've specified when I'm in this portion of the tool, in the data portion, but this search will search all of the data to which I have access to find analyses that match the question I type in. So in this example, I typed in, what is my gross profit by order method year over year? When I hit enter, the tool went out, looked at all of the data sets that I had available to me at that time, and it presented me with prototype analyses, like the bubble chart shown here, that matched my question. I can cycle through all of the proposals and I can pick one or more of them to use on my dashboard. I'll go ahead and I'll demonstrate this feature today, but this sort of natural language, this is what I'd like to analyze. Look at all the data I have available and find analyses that match this. To me, is a very exciting component, and it's just the beginning of the world of natural language in self-service business intelligence. So that will be part of our demonstration. Let me talk about the rest of the interface before we actually go and use the interface. So on the left here, I talked about the data sources being in this top button. I'm showing a data source here in the screenshot that is from a data module. And you could drag and drop into the canvas and start building your dashboard with that feature. Search I just described, I type in my intended analysis and it searches all of my available data, not just the data I've specified in the source, but all of the data that I have access to try to find a match to the analysis I've described. Media allows me to place images, videos, and web pages on my canvas to add those to my dashboards if I need them. Shapes is actually a collection of shapes. They're individual icons whose color and size and so on I can specify, essentially for visual interest on my dashboards. Text is a collection of text of different styles that allow me to label things on my dashboard to communicate to my ultimate consumers. And then visualizations, I mentioned earlier, I can drag and drop on the canvas from the data area, and it will generate a visualization for me, but I could also start with my intended visualization by clicking here and using the visualization and dragging that to the canvas. And then I can drag data onto that visualization. So I could go either way in terms of getting analyses onto my canvas. At the bottom of the canvas, below that is the data tray. Normally it is collapsed. When you click on the data tray button here, it will expand and it will show you a sample of the data that you have selected as sourcing the dashboard. You can also drag your data from the data tray as opposed to dragging it from the list of columns here. There's no difference in terms of the result. It's just two options to achieve the same end, populate a visualization. When you create a new dashboard, you're in what is known as edit mode. The other mode is view mode. Edit mode is essentially the development mode. When you're in edit mode, this is the default when you say new dashboard. You can add new visualizations, you can add new shapes, you can add text. This is the only time, in the edit mode is the only time you can add new items to a dashboard. But while you're building your dashboard, you're also able to see and interact with your data. So you can do this self-service data discovery while you're building your dashboard. So it's not sort of build the dashboard, a layout, and then run it in view mode to see your data. You are working with your data in edit mode while you're building and updating your dashboard. And the interactions that would be the ones that you would typically expect. I should be able to sort the data to highlight interesting data. I should be able to filter the data to focus the data in my visualizations. And that all is doable in edit mode. Now, view mode is sort of like a consume mode. This is when you click on an existing dashboard and it opens in view mode. What view mode has is the interactions of sorting and filtering with those visualizations, but I just can't add new ones. To add new visualizations, to edit the dashboard contents, I need to be in edit mode. The other important thing to note is when I'm in edit mode and I drag media, like an embedded video and web page objects onto my dashboard, they won't work in edit mode. You set them up, you identify the URLs for them in edit mode, but to actually leverage them to see the videos, to see and use the websites, you have to be in view mode. Now, filtering is an important aspect of interacting with a dashboard, and there are 4 different ways that you can filter data in a dashboard, and I will show all of those ways in my demonstration. The first way is to use the data tray, and that's a global filter approach. So if I, in the picture here, wanted to filter all of the widgets from this sample data module that to a certain set of retailer types, then I would use the data tray, click on the header and retailer type. It will pop up a context-sensitive button bar. I'll click the filter on that button bar. I'll select the 2 or 3 retailer types that I want in my analysis, and every widget that I build from that data source will be automatically filtered to the retailer types I selected. So global filtering is supported. That's through the data tray. On each widget, on each visualization, depending on where I click, I will get different filter options. So for example, if I clicked on the widget shown on personal accessories, I'll get a pop-up that will allow me to filter the widget to either include or exclude that particular value. That's okay if the values that I want to include or exclude are shown on the widget. But what if the widget I'm showing here, I wanted to filter by country? Well, if I click up in the corner on the widget, there's this arrow pointing up to the right. When I click on that, it expands the widget. It shows me the drop zones for the widget, so I can see that I've got years in there and I've got product lines in there and that I've got revenue in there. But there's also a section for me to drag, let's say, country into the widget, not show it on the widget, but filter to a specific set of countries. So a local filter for that widget. So global filters, a couple of ways to create local filters on widgets. And then finally, widgets can filter other widgets. So if, for example, I were to add to the screen shown the list of countries from my data source, as soon as I added that list of countries, and that would be simply by dragging it onto a location on my canvas, it'll list all the countries automatically. When I click on a country, it will filter all of the widgets that come from that same data source to the country or countries that I specify. So multiple ways to filter, which is just yet another set of interactions that I can do. And then even this chart, if I were to click on outdoor protection in this chart, and I were to have another chart that showed product line data, or even if I had another chart that came from this data module that didn't show product line data, what you'll see is it will filter that widget to the selected value in this chart. So this chart can be a filter. I can add a filter to the chart. I can add a filter widget, and I can globally filter. So many ways to focus my data and find interesting insights by using this concept of filtering. So with all of that set as background and setup, let's go ahead and use the tool. So I'm going to flip over to Chrome, where I've got Cognos Analytics up and running. Cognos Analytics runs in Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer on my PC. It also runs through the application on the iOS devices and Android devices. The interesting thing with dashboards is on those mobile devices, I can author dashboards, which is new. It's not something you couldn't author in previous releases of the Cognos BI tool. And I would expect that more and more the lines between using a mobile device and the things you can do with the mobile device and using a PC and a browser are going to blur. And more they're going to unify the interface. So it doesn't actually matter how you consume the interface. You'll have features and functions available to you that are common across both. But I'm going to use my browser here. And the first thing I want to do is I want to upload my data that I would like to analyze in a dashboard. So I'm going to make this sort of a completely self-service demonstration. I'll click on my Upload Files button. And out on my PC, I have a place where I keep my data. And I want to upload this historical sales data so that I can analyze it. I'll go ahead and select that data. Cognos will upload the file. By the way, it stores this file out on their Cognos Analytics server in the file system. So there's no back-end database required to store this data. It's stored on your Cognos server in the file system. So it uploaded my data. It's showing me a sample of my data. And now it's asking me just to check one basic thing. Are the types of data up here correct? There's two types of data in your uploaded file. There's data that I wish to summarize, measures, revenue, quantity, and planned revenue are measures. And there's data I do not wish to summarize. Character data, that's sort of an easy one. But here I've got integers representing products, and I wouldn't want to summarize those. I wouldn't want to total my product IDs. Now you see that the tool has tried to intelligently analyze the contents of my file, and it has given me some prototype settings here. If I wanted to make product number a measure, I could by clicking on that grayed out icon. Of course, it doesn't really make sense to do, so I'll undo that change. Similarly, if I had years in this data, years often mistakenly get set to measures. This tool actually must be doing some sort of intelligent look at the column names because when I upload a column year, it's never set to be a measure. Once I've set these settings, and as you can see, it's quick, the other thing I can do is indicate I don't want a column in my uploaded data. I'm not going to deal with that right now. I'm just going to upload my whole file and click OK. It's now saved that metadata with that file. And now that file is immediately available to me to create a dashboard. I could use that file to create a dashboard very simply by navigating to my content where my uploaded files go and click on it, and that will launch the dashboard tool and we'll use that data source. The other way I can launch the dashboard tool is to click down here on New and click Dashboard. As I showed in the slides, the first thing I have to select is the type of dashboard. Is it a single page, is it tabbed, or is it an infographic? If I flip through these, you'll see that the layouts don't change. It's just the basic style when I'm on single page and tabbed, but there are special infographic layouts associated with that type. I'm going to go and do a simple tabbed for our experiment here. And I'm going to go ahead and use this particular layout with these 3 boxes at the top and these 2 boxes down below. Again, these come from IBM and you can easily add to this list. I'll select that, click OK. Now, because I used the New button, I will have to pick my data source. Again, I can use any number of uploaded files, or I could use any number of data modules in this dashboard. For our simple example, I'm just going to use the uploaded file that I just uploaded, my historical sales data, and there's my metadata here on the side. Now, what I'd like to do on this dashboard is I'd like to have some summary objects here in these top 3 little boxes. The first thing I'd like to have is my total revenue. So to do that, I'm going to drag revenue from my data area, and I'm going to drop it into the box. Now, in these layouts, you see I've got this blue box that highlights, and underneath it, you might not be able to read it. It says drop here to maximize. If I drop it there, you'll see that when I drop a measure in, it gives me by default the total for the measure in all of its precision. And if I didn't want total, you see on the button bar that came up, I could change it to something like average or min or max, but total is actually what I wanted here. Now, if I undo and just show you, if I drop that in and I don't highlight the drop here to maximize, it will just come up in small. And then I can move it if I wanted to maximize it. So that maximize is nice because it really takes advantage of the layout I've selected. Turns out I also would like up here my total planned revenue. So I'll go ahead and maximize that. Now these are rather precise numbers, and they're also, I would say, a little bit hard to look at. So what I'd like to do is, and they're running together. So I want to change the look and feel a little bit. I also want to scale these numbers, and I want them to ultimately look the same. So I'm going to click and then control click these guys, and I'm going to update their properties. In Cognos Analytics, the property sheet is always behind this button. If you hover over it, it says properties. That's the button to look for. When I bring up the properties, you'll see for these data assets, as they're called, there's 2 tabs of properties. There's style properties, and then there's visualization detail properties. I'm going to make a couple of small changes. I'm going to change the background color, just so you can see the background color change, and I can go with multiple different background colors. I can also change the border that's around them, and I do want a border around them. That was important for me to add, just so that they will look as 2 separate objects. The other thing I said I wanted to do was to scale the numbers, and under visualization details, there's an abbreviate numbers item, and you see how it immediately changed them over to billions. Now this is dynamic. So if I were to filter this dashboard and those were to drop to millions, it wouldn't give me fractions of billions. It would actually scale them to millions. You'll see that when I add some filters later, that's exactly what that will do. Okay, just a quickie on properties, just to let you know that there's properties on everything, right? There's properties even on the individual empty icons. But I'm going to just get out of the property sheet there just so you can, I just wanted to make sure you saw that component. Let's build a visualization. Remember, I told you there's 2 ways to build a visualization myself, and then there's this third way for me to search for visualizations based on a phrase. So I'm going to show you all 3 capabilities. The first capability I'm going to show you is to just have the tool generate a visualization based on data I drop into my palette, or into my canvas, pardon me. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to drag branch region over and drop it here. I'll use the maximize because I like it to take up the space. When I drag a non-measure in, what the tool does by default is it gives me a visualization that lists all of the unique values for that non-measure, for that character data in this case. Now, if I wanted to add a measure, like revenue, to this visualization, when I drop revenue in, you see in this automatic visualization mode, it will generate for me a visualization type that matches the data I dropped in. Suppose I drop in another measure. You'll see that it will actually give me a bar per measure. If I dropped in another an attribute like product line, another piece of business data as opposed to a measurement, you'll see that it will give me a collection of bars for each product line, and it will give me that collection for each value and branch. Now, what if I had mistakenly put in branch, but I meant to put in country? Well, this button here in the corner will expand the widget and give me access to the drop zones for the widget. So I could just now drag country in where it says branch, and you see it's dropped countries in. I'm going to go ahead and make this a simpler chart by getting rid of my product line. So now I have a bar per country. Now you see, because of the space that I'm using, the template, the number of countries, it actually doesn't show me each country for the bar. I can resize widgets, and as I resize it, you see it updates the y-axis and shows me more values. But really, what I should be doing here is showing you a map. If I'm going to show you values by country, that's probably best expressed on a map rather than in a bar chart. So once I have a visualization, if I want to change the type of visualization, I can simply click on a blank part, and I have this change visualization tool here. If you had sharp eyes earlier, you might have noticed that same icon is here when I expand the visualization and expose the drop zones. I can use either one to change the visualization. I'll go ahead and use the one that's open here. So all the visualization types that are available in dashboards are shown here. The ones at the top are the ones that Cognos is saying it recommends based on the types of data you have dropped into the widget, but you can always pick from the other visualization types as well. I'm going to select a map. Now when I select a map, you see that it immediately changes the visualization and shows me the result based on what I have here in the drop zones. And I'm perfectly happy with this map, so I'll click to collapse the widget down. And I don't want it to be this big map in the middle. What I would like to do is move the map up to this small area at the top. So I'm just going to drag it until I see the blue highlight on the maximize box. And now I've got this nice summary map up here at the top of my page. Let's go ahead and add a visualization by actually first clicking on the type of visualization I want. So I'm going to go ahead and add a line chart to this middle section of my page. So I'll drag it. I'll take advantage of my template by maximizing it. And you see it's now going to allow me to populate it with data. Let me go ahead and use the data tray to populate this particular widget. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag my product line in, and I'm going to put it in my color by. And I'm going to go ahead and put in, for my horizontal axis, I'm going to put in my year, because I want years across the bottom. And then in my vertical axis, I'm going to drop in revenue. And you see it won't actually generate the page until enough drop zones are filled in for it to generate. And for a line chart, I absolutely need something on the horizontal axis that makes sense to connect. Dates, years, that's the pretty common there. I needed a measure for the y-axis, and then color by is essentially give me a color for each unique value of what I drop there. So I picked a line chart, I dropped in a line chart, I'm happy with a line chart. Or am I? Perhaps I'm not. I've created it. I can still change it. Even though I picked one to start with, I can still change it. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a heat chart. Now, one of the interesting things about changing visualizations as you go is that it shows you your data in a new format, and it may actually give you insights that weren't obvious from the previous visualization. For example, I believe it's pretty obvious in this type of visualization that I sold no mountaineering equipment in 2010. Now, I suppose that could be a surprise, or that could be because we didn't introduce our mountaineering equipment product line until 2011. And I happen to know in this data set that that's exactly right. I didn't include it. So maybe that's not so much an insight as just a highlight. But perhaps the insight that I'm getting is that outdoor protection is routinely the lowest revenue in my organization. And that in 2012, I had very, very good years in personal accessories and camping equipment. So you see, as I change visualizations, it can maybe give me different insights in my data than the line chart did, or if I converted it to a bar chart. So this notion of interacting with my visualizations and changing the type isn't just about how I want to display it to my user when they consume the dashboard. It's also about finding things in my data by leveraging the different visualization types with the same data. So even while I'm building my dashboard, I'm interactive and I'm learning about the data that I'm presenting. Now, down here in the data tray, I mentioned that I could filter globally. So I'm going to go ahead and globally filter my data to a collection of countries. So I'll click on the country header, and you see I get a pop-up, I get a sort pop-up, and I get a filter pop-up. I'm going to go ahead and click on the filter. I'm just going to pick several countries just to show you. Now you see as I pick them, the objects change. Let me get out of the data tray and show you here. So you see I'm now showing millions up here in my summary objects. They went from billions to millions because I have filtered to a certain subset of countries. Similarly, only those countries are shown on the map here in terms of what data is mapped, and my heat chart is only showing data that has been filtered to those countries. Now you'll see that I don't have a visual indicator on the widgets that there's a filter, because the filter indicators on the widgets are about filters applied in other ways than global. So the global filter indicator is this dashed bar right here at the top of country. That's my visual indicator that my data is filtered to a particular set of countries. If I want to remove those filters, I can. I just go in here and hit the clear button, and now there's no filter on the data coming from here. Now, again, if I had two data modules or two files on my dashboard, only and I clicked on and did country filters, only the widgets that come from this data set that I'm filtering on will be filtered. It does not find matching names, let's say, across the three spreadsheets I'm using and filter that way. When I filter at the data tray level, it's only filtering for the data that came from the source that's shown in the data tray. So that's a quick example of a global filter approach. If I want to put a local filter on an object, I can expand the object. And this is a way I would say filter for data that's not shown. So on this object, I'm showing product lines, I'm showing years, and I'm showing revenue. If I would like to filter to, let's say, a particular set of countries or branches, I'm going to use branches just because I used countries last time. You can drag the data item into the local filters box. When you drop it in the local filters box, it shows you all the values, and you can select the values that you wish to include. And then when you collapse the box, you'll notice this little icon in the corner. That tells you that this box is filtered not globally, but through some other means than the data tray. So in this case, it tells you that there is a filter on this guy, so you know it's filtered. Now, this might be a good example to go and add some text to your dashboard where you indicate something along the lines of branches X, Y, and Z in the text. There is, as it turns out, a title on each widget that you can add and edit. So I could also put that information in the title on the widget as well. Okay, let me go ahead and take that filter off so I can show you another way to filter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just narrow this guy down a smidge and leave some space here. What I want to do is I want to filter by, let's say, branch, but I want it to be visible on my report, and I want it to affect all of the widgets that came from the data source that I'm about to pull from. So I have only one data source in this dashboard. So if I had two data sources, it becomes very important where I drag branch from, because if widgets from this collection of data will be filtered by this branch. If I had another spreadsheet that had branch in it, and I pulled branch from it, only the widgets built from that spreadsheet would be filtered. But in this case, I only have the one. Let me drop branch into this area. Let me make it fill in my available space. No maximize option here because I'm actually splitting this cell. But you see, when I drag in a non-measure, it gives me the unique values. But now let me click on Northern Europe. Notice now that I have filtered everything to Northern Europe because all of these widgets came from the same data set. And then I can pick Central Europe. I can control click and pick two regions and so on. So you see how everything's filtering. And also notice when I filter in this fashion, not only does it show a filter on the filtering item, it shows that I'm filtering each of the items, right? So the only time I don't get one of these icons is when I'm filtering down here in the data tray. So that's another way to filter. Now, what if I wanted to filter on just one product line as well? Well, this widget, if I were to select a product line, will also filter. It also pops up and allows me to add yet another filter. I'll explain that in a moment. But you see, when I click on outdoor protection, when I click on personal accessories, right, it is filtering these objects. So any widget can become the source of a filter. I can create widgets that are intended to be obvious filters. But even if I click here on a country, it will filter all of my objects to match what I clicked on, because every object is interacting with every other object from the same data source, and what I click on is going to be used as a filter. Now, I'm going to add another chart here just to show you one last piece of this pie. I am going to add a chart, and what I'm going to do in this chart is I'm going to add a visualization that shows these branches. So I'm going to go ahead and add branch, and then I'm going to add planned revenue. And so I get a bar chart. And I'm not showing you this because I want to show you a cool visualization. I want to show you this behavior. Now you see when I clicked on Central Europe here, and let me just undo my selection there on golf equipment. So the only filter I've got going right now is Central Europe. So Central Europe has filtered this guy, has filtered this guy, has filtered this guy, has filtered this guy. But you see how it has highlighted Central Europe in this guy. So when the data that I have got that I'm filtering on is visible in another widget, it doesn't technically filter that widget it's visible in, it highlights the data. So you see how Central Europe is highlighted here because it's visible in this widget. I'm not highlighting anything in these other widgets except I am this one, because you see how it's highlighted Central Europe. Northern Europe is now going to be highlighted. It's filtered up in here, but you see how it's highlighted down here. So there's this highlight behavior when data that is shown explicitly that's identical, and then there is filter behavior when the data is not shown. So lots of filtering options, lots of interaction options. Okay, the ability to build these visualizations by selecting the one I want, or simply by dragging on data so that it displays a visualization that makes sense based on data type. We haven't looked at the other toolbars, so let me just quickly show you the media tools. So I've got play media. This would be like for videos. I've got a web page, and I've got an image. Remember, those don't work unless in edit mode. You have to be in view mode to use them. Here is a collection of shapes. Remember, these are the shapes that would add visual interest to my my dashboard. And then there is text, which I quickly showed you before. But let me show you this tool. I'm going to go ahead first of all and remove this analysis that I did. I want a space available for the one I searched for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this cognitive search that's baked into the tool. So I'm just going to type in yearly revenue by country and hit enter. Now, whoops, I don't know. Apparently that backslash didn't bother it. So what it's doing now is it's not just looking at this one spreadsheet. What it's doing now, whoops, I guess I have to enter it again. Sorry about that. Is it's looking at all of the data I have available to me. Any data module that I have in my folders or in the team content, any uploaded files that I have in my content or my team content. And you see it's found 3 matches, and based on the matches it found, it's suggesting some visualizations. I'm going to go ahead and say this is the visualization that matched my intent the best, and I'll click on Use. And when I click on Use, it adds the visualization to the next available spot in my template. That's why I wanted to have an empty spot. So this could be the one and only way that I create a dashboard. I may not even pick a data set when I go into the dashboard. I may just type in my questions and have it analyze the data I have access to and just add the proper visualization based on the results set to my dashboard and build my dashboard out that way. So many, many ways for me to, on my own, with my data or with a data module, let's say, that exposes my corporate data assets like my data warehouse, I could build dashboards and I can build them cognitively or I can build them explicitly by drag and drop. Now let me show you a dashboard from a consume perspective as opposed to the edit perspective, which is what we're using now. I'm going to go ahead and save this dashboard and just call it my save it, and then I will get out of this dashboard, and I'm going to just launch a dashboard that's been previously saved. I'll go ahead and launch the sample dashboard that comes with the package, and this product line dashboard comes, and the only reason I'm launching this one is because it's got a unique type of visualization that I want to show you. So this visualization, and I'm in view mode now because I launched an existing dashboard. So I'm in view mode. This tool, this visualization, when I go into edit mode, I'll show it to you in the toolbox. It is a data player. So it's playing, in this case, it's playing 3 years each year in turn. Now, because the year is visible in this widget and in this widget, the result of this player is to highlight the matching data in both widgets. So that's an interesting tool. You might find that that's of value. It's nice to know that it's there. If I simply click off of it here, if I were to click on camping equipment here, again, this widget is going to filter this widget, right? Because camping equipment is not shown in this widget. This is an order method widget. And similarly, if I click on telephone here, it's going to filter this widget, right? So all of that stuff is still happening in view mode. So all that filtering of an interaction, you'll notice that the data tray is available. So if I wanted to put a global filter on, I could. So the view mode is very, very interactive. What you'll notice, though, is I don't have anything I can drag in. I don't have data I could drag in. I don't have shapes. I don't have text, and so on. So the difference really between view mode and edit mode, right, is about changing this layout. Notice when I clicked on the blank spot on this visualization, it even gave me the option to update the visualization to a different type. So the interactivity in view mode is really quite high. To get to edit mode from view mode, you just click the pencil button. If you've given people the ability to create new dashboards, then they will have the pencil button. And then at this point now, I've got access to all of my tools. And then I could toggle back out to view mode, right? So that's the difference in modes. Both highly interactive, both exploring and expressing data. The big difference is can I add new objects to the page in view mode versus not view mode. So let me go ahead and close this particular dashboard. Since I changed it, it's giving me the option to save it. Now do remember that if I did change this and I hit save, and I've got permissions in the in the team content area to overwrite this, then my changes will stick and the next user will get the updated look and feel. So all of our security rules about who can change what and who has write access and who doesn't still apply on these objects. You may not want to have end users who personalize a dashboard be able to save that personalization over the top of it. Maybe you need to have them do a save as only, and that's just about security permissions. Let's go ahead and consume our dashboard that we wrote. And while I didn't spend much time on sorting, when you click, for example, here and get the filter, so I could filter to a collection of product lines. I clicked on the product line label here as opposed to on an individual product line. This icon is for sorting, so you can not only filter, but you can sort. In this case, I sorted them ascending or descending. Different widgets have different sort options. The number of items you've dragged into the widget dictate the number of sort options. I have found that some sort options are available only when you have 2 items in a widget, and then they disappear when you add a 3rd item. So you've just got to understand what sort options exist. But I did want to mention that you can sort. It's not just all about filtering. So that's the demonstration I had in mind for today. We do have a bit of time left for some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at those. But first, let me do this and just tell you a few things that LPA might be able to do to help you as you move on your Cognos Analytics journey. I think the most obvious one is LPA could help you with your upgrade. That could be just your planning phase, could be actually performing the upgrade on your behalf. That upgrade might be to install and configure and then actually convert your models forward. It could include testing of your content. It could be that we would help you while you go live. So lots of different options. We don't have to necessarily do it as a project that covers everything. Engage us for the pieces where you need some support. But upgrade services is probably the most common thing we're asked about when we talk about Cognos Analytics. The other thing that's most commonly asked about and that we have a great history and pedigree in is in training. Now we have updated all of our materials to be Cognos Analytics specific. We have a basic reporting class that's 1 day that teaches the basics of the new reporting tool. Advanced reporting gets into more depth in terms of features and functionality in that tool. Dimensional reporting, yet again, is a class that's just about reporting from OLAP data sources like cubes. Writing active reports. We have a whole class on dashboards that I've just given you basically a summary of. We have a whole class on data modules. We have a 1 day intro class on Framework Manager, and we have more classes. Now, many of these, not all of them, but many of these we can customize to incorporate your data into the exercises so that your users that are being trained are not only being trained on the tool, but they're also being trained how to leverage the tool with their own data, ideally coming out of the class with reports and analyses that they can actually use after the class. And we deliver our classes on site which I'd say is probably more than 50% of the time what we're asked for. But we can also deliver remotely, where the teacher is in one location and your students might be in several other locations. So we could do it either way. So those are just some ideas for how LPA might be able to help you as you migrate towards your Cognos Analytics environment. And then let's get to some questions. So the first question I have is, can I embed JavaScript in a dashboard? No, the answer is, at this time at least, no. There's no widget in the toolbox that is like the widget in the reporter that allows me to embed JavaScript. However, there is a web page widget, and you might say that you could embed JavaScript on a web page and then put that web page in a web page widget. But there's no way to directly put JavaScript into a dashboard to, let's say, add more interactions than the ones I've shown you. Next question. You've said you can use data modules and uploaded files. Can I use packages in my dashboard? Great question. The answer is not at the moment. So when they rolled out Cognos Analytics last year at Insight, I met with the product management team, and that was actually a question I asked. The release right now, the demo I gave you was on 11.0.2, by the way. The release right now does not support packages as a data source for a dashboard. Uploaded files can be directly used, no intervention needed, as you saw today. Data modules, the new metadata, can be used, but the metadata from Framework Manager packages at the moment cannot be used to source a dashboard. However, when I talked to them, they were very keen on adding that functionality. So that's on the roadmap. No one at IBM is going to tell you when a new feature will come out, but I am very optimistic and hopeful that it comes out in the next release, which is due to have a bunch of enhancements in it. So fingers crossed on that one. It's on the roadmap, so it will eventually be there. I have great confidence. I can't comment on when. Do dashboards support drill down? So spreadsheets and data modules at the moment are relational only. So the spreadsheets are, of course, a set of rows and columns from from a file. So those are relational for sure. And it turns out data modules as yet do not support OLAP data sources. So for right now, no drill down because I don't have OLAP support for the types of data that can be used on a dashboard. Will that come when we can use packages? Perhaps. I don't know. That's not a question I asked. So for right now, the answer is no. No drill down because I have no OLAP. And I think I might have time for one more quick question. Again, I will answer all the questions you've submitted by email after the webinar. So don't despair. I will absolutely get you an answer. This last one. Why didn't you use a data module? And when would you use a data module versus an uploaded file? All right, let me give you a quick answer to that, and then I'm going to refer you to our upcoming data module webinar for more in-depth information. The quick answer is because the dashboard I created came from one data set, and that data set contained all of the data I needed for the dashboard. Take, for example, if I had two spreadsheets. Perhaps I have a spreadsheet that has my list of employees and their salaries and their position. And I have another spreadsheet that has the results from their latest performance appraisal. And I want to put a widget that compares salary and performance result. Well, I would need to be able to put in one widget data from two spreadsheets. Now, rather than merge those spreadsheets by hand on my PC, what I would do is I would upload those two spreadsheets to Cognos Analytics. I would create a data module. I would tell it to use those two spreadsheets as the data source, and I would generate a join between the performance appraisal results and my personnel list. Of course, I would have to have data in common, like an employee ID would have to be a column in both of those spreadsheets. But provided I can do that join, I can do a data module that implements that join on those two uploaded files, and then use the data module in my dashboard to create the analysis I want. That's an example of when I might use a data module in a dashboard scenario. There are others, like using corporate data assets would require a data module that exposed, let's say, the data warehouse. And if I wanted to add a spreadsheet to my data warehouse, I could do that through a data module as well. Well, I'm all out of time for today in terms of questions. I will get to the rest of these questions by email, but it just remains for me to thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to virtually seeing you on our next webinar very, very soon. Thank you very much.